Hi, welcome to Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm Seymour Kazimirski. Before I introduce our guest this week, I want to talk about the emails and comments I had about last week's show. It is true that the children of military dependents are taken care of by the military. I had a very high-ranking officer call me and say that my show was distorting the facts. So I do want to make it very clear that the military does take care of their children and dependents, and I apologize if I offended anybody. We are going to have a follow-up on that show in a few weeks where I'm having two fathers who are military vets to come and talk about what happened with their lives after they come back from multiple deployments. So today I have an honor. I have an honor of introducing a guest who has been with us before. He was here last February. His name is Bernard Offen. Bernard is a Holocaust survivor of Auschwitz. He has written books, he has had many videos, and he is not afraid to retell the story of his life over and over again so people can learn about what the Holocaust was about. If you want to see his show, go to thinktechhawaii.com, go to broadcast listings, and under the host name you'll see Seymour Kazimirski, and his show was on February 4th of 2014. So that's February 4th of 2014 for Bernard Offen's first show on ThinkTech Hawaii. Today's show is going to be different. We're going to not only be joined by Bernard, but we have the esteemed Mr. Jay Fidel, Mr. ThinkTech Hawaii with us. Jay, thank you for joining
Thank you, Seymour.
Bernard and I. And the reason I asked you to join us is because we have become very close as a threesome. We have decided that we're going to try to do something to help Bernard more than ever to tell his story and try to get a documentary going about what happened to Bernard, not just during the Holocaust, after the Holocaust, and even to his present day life. So I'm hoping that today's show is a discussion on how Bernard survived not the Holocaust, but what happened after. What happened after Bernard to your world? And I think if you don't mind starting, and I know a lot of people will want to know more about what happened to you in the Holocaust that did not see last year's show, and they can go back to it, and we will get into it in segment 2. But let's start right off with what happened at the end of the war.
After liberation by the American Army in Germany, I started looking for family because I did not know who, if anyone, survived. I was with American soldiers who took care of me after liberation, and I traveled to Munich to a refugee camp, and I was assigned to a room with lots of bunks and other men who were also survivors. And I saw one man reading a book, and I asked him what was the book. And he said, well, it's about the people who survived. I remember grabbing it out of his hand and turned to the letter O, my last name, and found that my brothers were alive. So that was my first clue that my brothers were alive. However, my name did not appear in that book because I wasn't in the refugee camp at the time, so I missed it. So my brothers did not know I survived. And I had information, though, about where they were and where they went to afterwards. So the following day, I inquired how I can get to Austria, Salzburg in Austria, to where my brothers have gone to. And since there was no transportation except trains, goods trains, coal trains and other goods, there was no, everything was bombed out. So someone told me that a coal train was going to go to Salzburg. So I climbed aboard the coal car and sat there, and the train started moving. And when the train slowed down and I saw some people, I asked, is that Salzburg? Is this Salzburg? Yes? No? When they said no, so I kept...
You stayed on the train?
Stayed on the train, and I asked several times when we slowed down. And then in the end, I asked, and they said, oh yeah, das ist Salzburg. So I jumped down and I made my way to the camp, the refugee camp where they were supposed to be. So I get there and I ask, are my brothers here? He says, no, they were here, but they left for Italy. So it took about a month and a half for me to get some documents, because no document about my life existed. Everything was destroyed. And they found a transport of trucks that was going from Austria, from Salzburg, to Italy with Italian refugees who were being returned home. So I was aboard that train, the trucks, and we went over the Alps. Beautiful, beautiful journey, but I didn't exactly know where I was going. I only knew that I was pursuing my brothers.
How old were you, Bernard, to put this into context?
I was 16 at that
Wow.
time, just after liberation. And when we got to Italy, in the town called Ancona, because it was written down as to what refugee camp they were going to go to. And I asked, and they said, oh, yes, your brothers were here, but they're not here anymore. They joined the Polish army. The Polish army in exile, which was part of the British army. And so I asked, where did they go? And they said, well, they were sent to a Polish army hospital. Someone gave them the offer that if you join the army, we'll put you in the hospital because you guys are not in good shape. And they accepted that and joined the army. So it took me some time to get to that hospital. When I got to the hospital, I asked, are my brothers here? I said, no, your brothers were here, but they have been discharged, and where did they go? So they were sent to an army training camp for, basic training for soldiers. And I got there by hitchhiking, by walking. There was nothing that would stop me from trying to find my family.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any money?
Money? What money?
How'd you get around like that?
The thumb.
How'd you eat?
Some people gave me some food and carried a little sack, and we didn't need much in that time in order to survive. Actually, we as human beings don't need that much to survive, really, but basic stuff that we need. But people were helping me, and I was determined to find my brothers. Of course, they didn't know I was alive. So when I got to this training camp, I asked again, where's my brothers? They said, oh, yes, your brothers. They're here, but they're not here. They are on leave. And so where did they go? Oh, they went to this town called Bari. There's a PX kind of thing for soldiers, a rest resort. And so I hitchhiked my way there again, and I asked, are my brothers here? She says, yes, your brothers are here. They're out there someplace on the grounds, walking around, and so I keep walking, and I see a soldier in British summer uniforms with Polish insignias. And I ask him, have you seen my brothers? He says, oh, yes, I saw him someplace walking. So I keep walking, and I see two young men, two soldiers in khakis, and they look familiar. So I'm nearing, go nearer, and I said, look, and say, oh yeah, that's my brothers. I recognize them. And I walked up to them, and it's still stuck in me, the emotion of finding my brothers alive, you know, and in good shape. And to this day, it's when I talk about it, emotions come up. And I had to be the bearer of that father. Our father was murdered in Auschwitz. So that was the beginning of the relationship with my brothers. And for the next weeks, I actually joined my brothers in their barracks. You know, soldiers with their rifles and all that, and in between bunks, and I slept in between bunks. They got me a sleeping bag there, and so I was part of that. But in the end, I had to leave. I could not remain with the army, and I had to go to a refugee camp some distance away.
Bernard, did your brothers? They fled, obviously, before you went into the camp, right? They were not in Auschwitz, your brothers?
No, they were not in Auschwitz. We were in all the camps, except for them, not Auschwitz.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they went away, were they trying to find you as well? Did they think you were still alive?
No, they were not looking for me. My name did not appear
on the camp, on the list.
On the list.
What a surprise that must have been.
Yes, it was a great big shock, and for them, as it was for me. Yeah.
What was the trauma factor? The trauma factor of having lost your parents, finding your brothers. Was there elation, or was there more pain that all of this had transpired?
It was
I'm
elation,
keeping in mind
yeah.
that for our audience that you were 16 years old, such a young man who has suffered so much, and then you find your brothers.
Of course, that was also after 5 camps, including Auschwitz. So, you know, it was the Krakow ghetto, the Prussian camp, and then there was the Gulag camp, from which I escaped from the Prussian camp. And then there was Mauthausen, which is in Austria. And then there was Dachau, or subcamp of Dachau. So there were all these that we were sent to, and my father and I. And my brothers were also thrown into the same kettle car after I did not see them. They disappeared from our lives when we were shipped from the Prussian camp, which is near Krakow, to Mauthausen, which is about 500 kilometers away. So it was a reunion in the cattle car. but that's what transpired.
Going back to the fact that you couldn't stay between the beds for very long, that the Army wasn't going to permit you to do that, and that you had to go to a refugee camp, which is another camp in its own way. You were separated again from them, and you were still 16.
Yeah.
That must have been very hard on you.
It was hard, but
You knew they were alive,
I
so it
knew
was
a lot.
different.
And I kept hitchhiking to where they were stationed quite often. Again, using my driver's license of, the thumb. And so we kept together in that way.
You know, it strikes me that, the trip to find them and the trip between all those 5 camps and the experience of breaking in, breaking out, all those things you did, and you were, less than 16, you were, what, 12 or 14 or 16 when all that happened, you're moving around like that, that you had to have or develop certain skills that the ordinary teenager doesn't have in the world. And my question to you, Bernard, is what were those skills? How did you manage to survive in this terribly, caustic environment? How did you manage to survive crossing Europe by thumb at the age of 16 in post-war Europe? It must have taken a certain mindset, a certain set of skills that we don't really know about these days.
We're going to talk about that right after the break, Bernard. We have to take a short break for commercial, and then we will be back. I'm Seymour Kazimirski with our guests Bernard Offen and Jay Fidel on Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii. Be back in a minute.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Hi, welcome back to Seymour's World. I'm Seymour Kazimirski with our guest Bernard Offen, a Holocaust survivor, a guest of ours, a friend of ours. Because this is such an important topic, I felt we needed to try to get as much as we can in this interview. We ended off the last segment with survival. How were you able, from a 12-year-old boy, 16-year-old boy, all that in between, to escape from concentration camps, to do all the things that you did? What did it take, Bernard?
I think I was more in touch with my unconscious skills of surviving. And it's a separation sometimes of the mind and body. Like, for instance, in Auschwitz. I was next to a barbed wire fence, my barracks, and I saw birds alighting on the barbed wire. And my methodology, which helped me in survival, was to imagine myself as a bird, and I was flying out of it. Mm-hmm. So my body was in Auschwitz, but my mind and spirit was out many, many a time. So it's a projection of, And same thing was operative in many of the camps, to go left, to go right. And of course, I am grateful to the many angels, the men that helped me, you know. I call them my angels. I don't remember their names, but I do remember faces. People who told me, Bernard, you're going to go in that direction. Here is another piece of bread for you. It's or a piece of clothing. So it was all these angels that helped me. As far as looking for my brothers, once I found out that they were alive, there was no obstacle that I saw. There might have been a little problem here and there, but they were not obstacles that stopped me. It was a vision of finding. It was a vision of such a strong desire to connect with family. And of course, they didn't know I was looking for them. You know.
What are their names? What were their names?
It's my oldest brother's name is Sam. He passed away 2 years ago. My middle brother, living in Florida, he's 92 now, and his name is Nathan.
Just for...
and I'm the baby at 85.
I was just going to tell everybody, this young guy is 85 years old, and we're very, very...
85 years young.
Young, excuse me. I apologize. I take full responsibility for that comment. I want to help our audience understand a little bit. Obviously, people like us who understand the Holocaust and have seen videos and pictures of the Holocaust. Bernard and I, in 2005, put together a video called Hawaii and the Holocaust, which we use as a teaching tool here in Hawaii. And I go and lecture to the schools. Jay, you've been to one with me. And we talk to the young people to help them understand not just the historical reference of the Holocaust, but Bernard's story, because it's such a personal story. My mother's story, which is a personal story. And it gives young people, and even teachers who know very little about the Holocaust, a understanding that this is about individual people. A young boy of 12 or 16 years old who can survive and still be here, not just to talk about it, but to help people understand. We've got a small video clip we're going to show, Bernard, just to give some reference to your story. So Zuri, if you don't mind putting that up, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
How long is this?
2 minutes. You can't hear it, Bernard. It's the Holocaust was one of the worst periods of history that mankind has ever known.
"2,000 people in one gas chamber, and there were 7 gas chambers in Auschwitz.
As soon as we entered, the stench was overpowering. The stench of urine, feces, and the acrid smoke of burning flesh. You know, it lingers in the air.
You can take a human skeleton, okay, you know what that looks like, and put skin on them. That's about the way they were, you know.
We looked at each other from a distance, kind of a eye contact, and we knew that that was the end. People often say, it's just another day in paradise. I disagree. For me, it's never just another day in paradise. Every second I spend in Hawaii is precious. Every flower I smell, every wave I see, and every smile that comes my way is a blessing. And it's a reminder of how lucky I am to be alive. No question, Hawaii is heaven on earth, which makes it even more remarkable that in my 75 years, I have experienced heaven and hell without ever leaving this planet. My name is Bernard Offen.
The pictures were very graphic. They were what Bernard saw every single day of his life for 4 years inside the different camps that he was in. You also saw a couple of people from the 442. These were Japanese people from Hawaii who helped liberate Dachau and some other camps as well. And that'll be a follow-up. The reason I showed that, Bernard, is because so many people know the Holocaust from one paragraph in a history book. And when we did that video, which by the way is 20 minutes long and is available to all schools and all organizations, you just have to contact me for it and I'll get you guys a copy. It became a very important focal point in my development because of you. I felt that I had a mission. My mother's story and your story helps young people understand tolerance, helps them understand that the world is not the way they see it today. It's made up of history, and history should not repeat itself. Now, we're going to continue on because we don't have a lot of time. But Jay, you had a follow-up question you wanted to ask.
Yeah, it strikes me that part of your answer inherently is that you had angels who helped you through critical moments.
Yes.
And I assume from what you said that had you not had those angels, you might not have made it. They saved your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they shone down on
Yeah.
you. They came, they saw you, they saw this 16-year-old boy, and they decided you were worth the risk of the bread or the clothing, because there's always a risk.
Yes.
Okay, something in you made them react that way. Do you know what it was?
I have speculated for a long time about that, and what I came up with was they had that human connection to another being, and that transferred to, if I help this kid, maybe someone will help my kid. So that's what I came up with, and I believe that it is so.
And it has worked out. It has worked out very well for you, Bernard, because if you look at your life today and you look at what you're doing, I mean, I've been with you on 2 tours in Auschwitz, one with Aaron, my son, and one with my wife, Sue. And I see what it does to you to give that tour. A piece of your soul goes out to the people who watch that tour or go on the tour with you. And Jay, I told you, you've got to do it with him because it's absolutely amazing to understand that somebody could have survived under those conditions. It's impossible for us to even think that somebody could have survived, but you did.
A lot of people didn't survive.
Of course.
And so it's very hard to draw the line. A lot of it has to be plain old-fashioned dumb luck.
Yes, absolutely, that too. And I don't know what part God played in it, but one of my visions was, I was very angry with God, and if you allow me to survive, I will make film and bear witness to what transpired because I want the whole world to know. And guess what I'm doing? And I have Seymour and you and others who are interested in helping me to put out that message, how we as human beings treat other human beings. And
So you made an agreement.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely
Now
true.
you sign your email in a very extraordinary way, Bernard. It's not lost on anybody who's ever corresponded with you.
Yes.
You always say love, light, and courage.
And courage, yes. If we don't have courage to go beyond what our trauma is, we're going to be stuck in it. I was in numerous seminars on the mainland, and one of them was, the title of it was Self-Determination in the Process of Healing. And that was many years ago. Now I lead groups in which I title it Self-Confrontation in the Process of Healing. So if we don't confront our trauma, whatever it is, whatever problem we have, and that problem will drive us, and nothing is going to happen. We're going to go downhill. So if there is no determination to go through it and get the best help we can and reach out and beyond our problem, and we don't look at our trauma, that trauma is going to drive us.
You're 100% right. And we talked about that before the show, how important it is, the one lesson that you can learn, or maybe several lessons you can learn, that Bernard is teaching us that what he has gone through is not the end of the world. You have to put it on the back seat or behind you and focus on what is positive in your life to go forward. Bernard, we have to take a short break and we'll be back in a minute. I'm Seymour Kazimirski on Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll be back with Bernard Offen and Jay Fidel in a moment.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hi, welcome back to Seymour's World. I'm Seymour Kazimirski. We're on ThinkTech Hawaii with our guest Bernard Offen and my co-host Jay Fidel. We've got some pictures that you have given me that we'd like to show the audience to give them some reference about you and your family and your history. So if we could bring them up and you could look at them on the monitor, can you give us a little explanation? Who is that married couple?
It's a wedding of my parents.
Yeah.
That's one.
That's in Poland, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Let's see another one.
That's my mother. Some years after the wedding. Yes.
Uh-huh.
She was a seamstress, and my sister. That's my sister Mira. She was 2 years older than I.
And was she in Auschwitz as well?
No. She was sent from the ghetto with my mother to a Majdanek a concentration camp where they were murdered there.
Oh, beautiful girl.
Pretty girl, yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's my uncle and aunt, my youngest aunt, and they got married just before the war. They disappeared. Mm-hmm. There's almost 60 people in my larger family that disappeared, and that's my uncle and aunt. And this is another uncle, brother of my mother.
You lost them as well?
Yes, and his wife and child, and that's them again. This is a cousin who disappeared during the war also. Her father was a artist, a painter, painted portraits, and
you know, the memory of all these, Bernard,
yeah.
must hurt.
Yeah, I have to let it go. And the last one, that's me in Italy after liberation in this refugee camp.
How old were you then? 16?
Yes.
That's
after
you.
finding my
That's the one
brothers.
we were talking about.
Right.
Yeah. And that's me in London after being sent there by the Polish army as a dependent of the Polish army.
You were a translator, right? Is that where you ended up being a translator?
No,
or further?
not really.
No? Okay.
Not really.
Wow.
And
the bringing these pictures, the reason I want people to see the pictures is because it humanizes the experience. You had brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and 60 people that perished in the war.
Yeah.
Very, very difficult time.
yeah, My question would be to people, how many of you know 60 people in your family or in your circle of friends, and they all disappear, all because they were Jews. They were not worth to be saved as human beings. They were to be exterminated, and that's what they did. And that was the politics of the day.
And that was what you have to live with. And how do you, and you live with it now. How do you live with it now?
Well, it's a burden that I carry in many ways, but I say if there's been enough suffering, I don't believe in suffering. People should not suffer, and it is why I am bearing testimony, bearing witness to what transpired, and I don't want anybody to suffer. But we keep creating systems in which people suffer, and we need to get beyond the suffering, so not to be trapped in suffering.
Jay, go ahead, you had a question.
Yeah, I think there are many reasons that you do this, just my observation. You spoke about the healing process.
Yes.
And you spoke about this, dealing with your own anger.
Yes.
I think when last time you were here with Seymour, you spoke about what happens sometimes. You're walking down the street, you see somebody who reminds you
Yes.
of one of those guards,
Yeah.
and you get angry just to see
Yes.
that,
Yes.
and it helps you
Yeah.
to deal with that. And then, of course, there's your demons, the ones, the PTSD type of demons.
Yes.
That you must have a therapeutic effect if you can, talk about it and do the healing process and do the tours. But I'm also thinking that you're trying to teach people, and I'd like to explore with you who you're trying to teach and what you're trying to teach them. The old slogan after the war, never again, the Israeli slogan, the Holocaust survivor slogan, never again. Who are you telling that to, and for what purpose?
I'm focusing primarily young people, that they have a possibility of a good life ahead of them. But they need to work with whatever their anger or trauma is. If we don't look at forgiveness for all our people with whom we have lived or live with, and whatever wrong might have been done, the anger keeps on with us, and it destroys us. It does not destroy the people who might have created the anger, did something wrong to us, to me. And we need to let it go and go on, and have some kind of a goal of where we would like to go. If we have a vision of what we would like to do, I would say 95 or 99% of the time it is possible if we work with it. If we are feeling human beings who see the others, that in many ways they might be suffering too, and that is why perhaps they cause us to suffer. Actually, we're causing ourselves to suffer because we're doing the creation of the suffering. And so we need to see that we're carrying around, instead of letting it go. And it's not a one-time event where, like this, I was in Germany and this old man was walking by me and he's long gone. And I catch myself thinking, where the hell were you during the war and what were you doing? He was long gone, and he had probably nothing to do with it whatsoever. But my mind kept me a slave with my thinking, you might say. So I need to catch ourselves. How are we thinking? How are we responding to events around us, to our parents, to teachers, to the boss, to in other ways?
I think what is important is how you're explaining the integration of your personal feelings as well as your integration of the surroundings, taking your past, your present, and your future, and making them very clear in your own mind that you are going to focus on the future, that's going to be what is going to drive you, and that gives you your good health. Obviously, it gives you a determination to do what you want to do with your life. It gives you the will to teach, the will to repeat the story over and over again, because it has to be repeated, because you feel that that is not just part of your cleansing, it's part of an educational process for people. I think it's excellent, Bernard, and very well explained.
Bernard, you spoke about this last time Seymour, interviewed you, and I just wonder if we could ask the question again. Is that
Sure.
is part of this that you would try to forgive, and have you forgiven? Do you think you will ever forgive?
I have forgiven for my own suffering. I cannot forgive for anyone else's suffering, because I'd be something larger than Bernard, And it's a healing process. It's an unloading of trauma that I carry if I am angry and don't forgive. It's a healing process. It's self-confrontation in the process of healing. And that's the title of my walks in Auschwitz.
And this, a book. There's
Could
a
you
book
show
on
the
the
people?
table. You should show
Go
this
ahead.
to our
Just
audience.
Put it up to the camera. There, that camera right there. Can you focus in on that?
Do you want me
Sachi?
to?
Here it comes, right there. Now, the title of the book is, go ahead, Bernard. It's your book.
It's called My Hometown Concentration Camp. And I'm talking about Krakow, Poland, the city of my birth. And there's also a title for one of my 5 films, the same title. So,
My Hometown Concentration Camp.
yeah.
Bernard, your life, of course, in the last few years, since I've known you for 15 years now, has been to come to Hawaii. You love to come here every year. You seem to be here for a month or 2 or 3. You come with Christina, who's your wonderful companion.
Yes.
And is it cleansing to come here, or is it just to get out of the cold of Poland?
It's both, actually.
Okay.
It's both, actually. We, Christina and I, we love Hawaii, and we would come here. We've been here numerous times, and what can I say? It's a piece of heaven that some people who live here are not even aware of.
Right.
It takes someone from the outside to remind you what a piece of heaven you live in, weather-wise, and the beautiful, wonderful Hawaiian hospitality. Aloha. I love the
shaka.
yes, and then the greetings.
Is it fair to say, Bernard, after all the life you've had, all these incredible dangers and adventures and risks and survivals, that now at the age of 85, you're a happy man?
I am a happy man, and I don't allow myself to be depressed. It's just something I've decided on, and I don't allow myself to get depressed, because that leads to a spiral of down. It takes more energy to be depressed than it takes to turn around and use that same energy, even
Positive
a lot less.
energy.
Yes, to have a goal, to move towards something, instead of drifting unconsciously, subconsciously, to a downward spiral.
Wow.
It's a great
We have a
message.
choice.
Yes.
We have a choice, and if we don't do that,
Bernard, it has been such a pleasure again. My biggest problem is that we don't have enough time to really talk, and I hope next year when you come back, we can do another show with you and talk about another aspect of your life, because I think you are an inspiration to us all, not just to Jay and I, but to everybody in the audience who's watching this show. You're an amazing individual who's overcome so much more than any of us can even imagine. That's why I wanted people to see the clip. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you here, and something that I hope we can repeat over and over again. Thank you for coming.
Amen.
Okay, so we have a date for the
Next-
year one, to the
2016.
year 100
2016.
for me.
Yes, yes, you're
Okay.
coming back for
Yes.
sure. I want to thank you all for watching. It has been an amazing show. Bernard is somebody who we should all look up to and say, if we can emulate just a piece of his feeling about the future and how to take life, it's serious. Life is very serious. But what he has done is made his life struggles actually important to his future. And if we do that and we make our problems much smaller than they really are, we will live a better life too. I'm Seymour Kazimirski on Seymour's World at ThinkTech Hawaii. Aloha.